Hello and welcome to another video in my JavaScript tutorial. And in this tutorial, we'll go through using loops in JavaScript, specifically the while and for loops. So let's just restart from scratch and I will just show you how the syntax works and then explain what goes on. So while, brackets and curly braces, that's it. So the way it works is that you have a condition in here. And actually this doesn't work, but you have a condition in here, and as long as this condition returns true, your code within the while curly braces will be running. So let's just have an easy example and have a variable called n equals a number, which is, let's start from 0. As long as n is less than, let's say, 5, we want to console log this is, whoops, this is plus n. So we just want to console log this is and give what n is right now. And then after, specifically what you need to be aware of is that while n is less than 5 and we have n equals 0, so if we, let's say, run this, we're going to be struck with an infinite loop where this won't end ever, because n will always be less than 5. Therefore, n will your while loop will always be true. So it will keep on, logging this to the console. So what you need to do is that, well, what you don't need to do, but what generally is done, is that you add 1 to n. So what happens before I log this to the console is that first n starts up as 0. N is less than 5, therefore this is logged to the console, and then we add 1 to n. Restart. So now n is equal to 1, n is still less than 5, logs this is 1 to the console, then you add 1 to 1, therefore n is 2. So let's just log this and see what happens. Before I do it, just take a guess at what happens. 3, 2, 1. And there we go. Let me just add a space for clarity. And that's what happened. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4. This is because we added 1 to n each time the code ran. And the reason why it didn't run 5 is because we wanted it to be less than 5. So as soon as n becomes 5, what happens is your n is less than 5 returns false, because 5 is not less than 5. 5 is greater, 5 is equal to 5. So therefore it returns false. This code within the curly braces does not run. There is another version of the while loop, which is do while. So let's just change this. Do. So wait, let me just write down the syntax and then explain what goes on as usual. So we have do followed by curly braces and then while a condition. Obviously expression is expected in here. So let's do this exact same thing where n is less than 5, and let's console log this is plus, let's have plus, n and n plus plus. Let's see what this outputs, and then let's just talk through what happens. So the exact same thing happens as the while loop. But the way this works is that it first executes the code inside the do curly braces, then it checks whether this is true. So no matter what, on the first iteration, it's going to execute this code, even if this is false. So let's just check that out quickly. This is 5. So it first does what is inside the curly braces, then it checks if this is true. If this returns true, then it executes it again and checks if this is true. But if at first it executes this, then if this returns false, it stops executing. It is a different variation to the normal while loop, and this form of syntax should only be used when you want the body of the loop to execute at least once. So regardless of the condition actually being true or false. But normally you should be using the while loop. The last part is the for loops. For loops are a bit more complex and a bit different, but let's just do the exact same thing that we've been doing with our while and do while loops with the for loops. And as always, let's go through the syntax first, then explain what happens. So for, and let's say, actually let's have some sort of pseudocode, and start. Yes, this will throw an error. Oh, but let's just ignore that for now. Condition and step. And step. So with for loops, you have something to start with. So let's say what we've been doing with our while loops, let's have n is equal to 0 and you want it to start with 0. Then you have a condition, and this is probably where you want it to stop running until. So like as long as n is less than 5, then what you want happening to n. So for our example with the while loop, we had n++, so just keep incrementing as long as this condition is true. And then within these curly braces, what happens is you want this code to execute. It's a more shorthand version of the while loop in terms of the example that we just used. So instead of having n++ within our curly braces, instead we have the console log, and just this is plus n. So let's just show you how it's done. So let n equals 0, so that's where we're starting from, and we're gonna, obviously we declared the variable, then we want n as long as it's less than 5. Then we want the step to be the same as before, which is increment by 1. So now this is going to return the same result as always. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So I forgot to mention that you can miss out any of these kind of bits within the brackets. So let's say instead of having n declared here as 0, let's just cut this out and actually let's just put it here. The code will still run normally as long as you just have your semicolon here, just separating it just to indicate that you've actually left this in. You can also change, let's say, the condition. Obviously you can mess around with the steps. You can have it n+2, and there's another feature of the for loop, which is being able to break from it if you reach a certain, let's say, certain number. So in our example, it will be a number, but let's say if let's have n is equal to 2, let's just break. Obviously, it's within the same line, so you don't need to have curly braces, and it will only carry on running until it reaches 2. So you just get this is 0, this is 1, and actually, if you had the console log before this condition, then it would actually run this is 2. If you have it after, it doesn't run 2 because we broke before we actually logged it to the console. So that's how we use for loops. That's the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.